Let's have a tuck shirt for once, shall we? Right. Oh, and we are recording. Brilliant. So why was there a Hungarian uprising in 1956? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the long-term and short-term causes, okay, of why this happened. So Roman has already identified that actually Hungary fought against Russia, the Russian Empire in World War I, because obviously it wasn't a communist country yet, and then against the Soviet Union. Okay, so let me just get these photos up. Okay, right here. So yeah, we'll just go through the long term. So twice in the space of 30 years, Hungary invaded Russia or the Soviet Union or the Russian Empire. So in World War I, it's the Russian Empire. In World War II, it's the USSR. And the Hungarians were basically how shall we say this? They were a satellite state of Nazi Germany. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not cool. Yeah, if Britain had been invaded twice by a country in the space of 30 years, I wouldn't feel particularly affectionate towards that country. And we have to remember just how devastating those invasions were. I mean, World War I was bad enough, but World War II, up to, and it may be an overestimate, but up to about 50 million, Soviet citizens died. Now, some people say it's an exaggeration. But let's just say if it's half that, if it is 25 million, that is like a lot of people. And let's not forget who did the most bleeding in World War II, or as the Soviet Union calls it, the Great Patriotic War. They don't call it World War II. They call it the Great Patriotic War. Why? It was fought in their country. Now, what did they do? They got invaded. And then they did 90% of the fighting. Now, all your life, you've watched films which just celebrate Western victories in World War II. Oh, D-Day. Okay? D-Day was only fought after the Russians had broke the back of the Nazis. Okay? 90% of German soldiers fighted. Sorry. That's awful English. 90% of German soldiers died fighting against the Soviet Union on the Eastern Front. Okay? Now, that was the mother of all battles and the mother of wars. The battle for Stalingrad. We're talking huge, like, in one day, the Nazis lost 144,000 men, okay, in the Battle of Stalingrad. Terrible losses, okay? It was the Soviet Union that broke the back of the Nazis in World War II. And the Hungarians and the Romanians. There were many countries in the Axis which fought against the USSR, okay? So I've over-egged the pudding a bit, but basically, your average Russian or /Soviet and your average Hungarian were not well disposed to one another. They were not best friends. Okay? All right, let's just put it that way. Now, also, not cool, but kind of the other way around, when the Soviet Union began to win World War II, as they call it, the Great Patriotic War, remember, they're in the east and they're coming westward. Now, they want to get to Germany. Why not? They've invaded us and gone hundreds of miles into our territory and killed like millions of people. So they wanted to go and invade Germany and get some revenge. Okay? Now, to get to Germany, you have to go through Hungary first. And boy, did they go through Hungary. And when they got into Hungary, they did something, and it's got a really weird name. Okay? If you're English. And, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the Hungarian language. It's extremely different to every other language in Europe. Okay? And they called this Mack-Poole robot. So what they did, the USSR, they forced over 600,000 Hungarians into work camps. I'm basically talking about concentration camps in order to aid the war effort. Many of these people never returned. So if you're Hungarian, you're quite disposed to hate the Russians or the communists or the Soviets just as much as they hate you. You can see there is no love lost between those two countries. So when Hungary becomes part of the sphere of influence under the Soviet Union, they hate it. They hate it more than most other countries, okay? And do you think the occupying forces in Hungary are particularly kind to the Hungarians and showing them great love and affection? No. You could imagine that the soldiers would have been quite brutal when they got there, okay? And would have meted out what we call street justice when they initially conquered the country. Okay, it wouldn't have been very nice. Okay, so what I'm basically talking about and alluding to is that there would have been sexual assaults towards women and maybe sporadic hangings. Okay, basically what we call war crimes. All right, not a very nice part of history. All right, so you can understand these long-term causes of the Hungarian Uprising. So what are the short-term causes? Let's have a look. Well, okay, Stalin's dead. Okay, Stalin's dead. So that's really important. And sorry, I just want to talk about before. I've kind of talked about the repressive occupation. So we know that when a communist state under Stalin is established in Eastern Europe, they would have a secret police. There would be no freedom of press. All other political parties would be banned. Okay, we understand that about communism by now. So you should have kind of inkling that would happen. More importantly for me, Stalin dies in 1953, and Khrushchev emerges as a leader. Okay, and he starts a process, and this is really important. Okay, it's called Destalinization. Okay, and that's why that's in our lesson inquiry today about Destalinization. And Destalinization, it kind of, it is what it says in the tin. Khrushchev wants to get rid of the kind of more cruel and repressive policies of the Soviet Union, which had existed under Stalin. Like, no more purges. Okay, like, we don't have to execute everyone. Why can't we have a more relaxed communist system where people genuinely enjoy socialism? That's what he wanted. Now, the Hungarians basically test him. Like, people may test a new authority, like a supply teacher, for instance. You might push the boundaries and see where you are with them. Okay. Now, if you've got a new dictator of a power in your country who's got troops there, and he says, I'm going to relax communism, I'm going to de-Stalinize, the Hungarians probably much thought, well, this is their opportunity to no longer be in a communist state, no longer be part of the Warsaw Pact. Okay, so a lot of Hungarians began to get, let's say, quite excited about the potential of ruling their own country again without foreign interference from the Soviet Union. And the spark for this is, in essence, as students. They kind of sporadically take to the streets of Budapest, the capital city, and they start to demand for greater freedoms. So these are the long-term and short-term causes of the Hungarian Uprising of 1956. Okay, I'm going to end it right there. Okay, stop recording.